Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Will is your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you as usual. You know, our guest today, we got a new guest on, sir, how do I say? I can't call it standby. I just have to say a wonderful person that decided to say, okay, Egberto, I'm going to take you out of that bind. And with us, we have the one and only Kristin Arnold. She is the rules analyst for 2019-2020 debates. She's a high-stakes meeting facilitator, professional panel moderator, and award-winning author, past president of the National Speaking Association. So we have someone with some credentials. Anyhow, folks, the title of the show today is Rules Analyst Kristin Arnold deconstructs the next democratic debates. Rules analyst Kristin Arnold appears with us again. She's been with us before to discuss the upcoming Democratic debate sponsored by CNN and the Des Moines Register. She surely has Wolf Blitzer in her crosshairs. The upcoming Democratic debate will be interesting, quite interesting, in fact. You know, it isn't when you find somebody that kind of coalesce on the same things you were thinking, you kind of get some sort of a refreshing feeling. And you know what? She said, Kristin made 3 prescient points. She said, good news. The field has narrowed to 5 candidates. Bad news. TV ratings continue to plummet. So, CNN called in Wolf Blitzer to the rescue. But there is, and this is Kristin, but there's more. Kristin says that even though Blitzer has moderated 6 presidential debates, his reputation is rather erratic. He's either fully in charge or he also likes to create controversy. Well, Kristin is with us to lay out how the game is played. She is the rules analyst. So I tell you what, why don't we just let Kristin rule? Kristin, welcome to Politics Done Right one more time. How are you doing today?
I'm ruling.
You are ruling, Kristin. You're ruling. Look, tell me a little about what's going on in the Democratic debate from the rules analyst point of view.
Well, gosh, we just went from 5 people being on the stage to 6 as of this morning. Steyer just got enough credentials that he's going to be on the stage. And I was really looking forward to just 5 because we've had way too many people on the stage to really have a meaningful conversation. So that's kind of a bummer.
Well,
but I guess some people are pretty excited that he is going to be on the stage. And there are some other people who are probably upset that they didn't get the qualifications, but they still have the rest of the day to get there.
Well, I mean, you know what? I think, believe it or not, even those that didn't make it, right? The fact that they didn't make it will give them some extra news coverage, right? They'll go out there and say, well, I didn't make it because, and the news media is going to want to have something special to cover. They're going to want to have some controversy or some excitement. So they're going to get some coverage.
Well, I think Bloomberg's doing a pretty good. He's on some show commenting on the debates right after it. I can't remember which. So
didn't know that.
He's leveraging the debates since he can't be there. Might as well comment on them. Why not? So,
well, since you have to be very middle of the road, I want to ask the first question I want to ask you is as follows. There are 2 guys that are putting a lot of money into the debate, or rather into the election to try to get themselves in the debates and elected. How should a moderator handle something of that nature? 2 candidates with unlimited capital to make themselves viable, while others having to do it the old-fashioned way. How should a moderator handle that?
Well, I mean, if that's a question that you think the American public wants answered, and obviously, Egberto, you want that answered, so you would go, ask the question. And in fact, Steyer, he was in the 4th debate and the 5th debate.
Yes.
And he was actually asked that question directly. He was asked, housing is unaffordable. Are you the best person to fix this problem? You're the lone billionaire on this stage. What's your plan for closing the income gap? So what they did is they basically say, here, we realize that you have gobs of money, and how would you fix the economy or use that money in some way? So they tie it to something that they think that the American public would care about versus just going, is it right that you're a billionaire?
Is it?
Sure. Well, is it right not to be a billionaire? I mean, you got to have some resources in order to run for president. Let's face it, $450,000 an annual salary. You're not going to get rich as the president while you're president. You're going to get rich after you're president in the book deal and the speaking. But actually being a president and running for president, you have to have, some resources, either using other people's resources or having your own.
It's kind of curious that you said $450,000 job isn't going to make you rich. Some people would think that income is an income of a rich person, don't you think? I'm just saying.
If you're the president of the United States, you've got an awful lot of expenses that you have to take care of.
True that.
And I would not expect that the American public should pay for some of those things that you should have as the head of state. So, in relative perspective, probably not a lot for the head of state to get as a quote unquote salary.
Okay.
But for the average person, absolutely, that is a lot of money. But the average person doesn't have the expenses that a head of state should probably have and incur.
Well, I think I'll give you that. Now, you pretty much took it. Well, I shouldn't say took it out, but you pretty much are concerned, I think, with the way that Wolf Blitzer is going to moderate the debate. Give me your rationale behind that.
So I think Wolf Blitzer is a very seasoned, credible journalist, and he has lots and lots of experience on the debate stage. But much like Lester Holt, who had lots and lots of experience, Lester Holt has the same kind of issue in that either you are very hard and controlling, which is what a lot of the debate moderators have been. When you have 12 people on a stage, you've got to exercise some control. Or do you let it go on the other end of the spectrum, especially when you only have 2 or 3 people on the debate stage? Do you let it, kind of let the conversation unfold? And I think the American people kind of gravitate towards the discussion versus, Egberto, I'm going to ask you a question, just answer the question. And then I'm going to ask the next candidate a question, and then they're going to answer the question. I think, the challenge for these debates is asking really, really good questions that the American public cares about, and then letting the candidates talk among themselves, debating where the differences of their positions are. And early on, they weren't debating positions because they were, at a very meta view, very similar. So it's kind of boring in that, you got to get down to the detail. Well, now you're pitting people against each other, trying to clarify their positions, and that's where it can get kind of sticky.
Now, you're saying that you think it was sort of boring before because they had similar positions, but do you really think that the average American citizens really believe that Biden and Bernie had sufficiently similar positions that it still remains sort of boring?
Well, I mean, that's the challenge of the moderators, is they need to ask questions that help shape the American position. So part of it is the question. So let me give you a very specific example, Egberto. In the very first round of debates, 1A and 1B, they were on 2 separate nights, 2 different tiers. The debate moderators used a very interesting technique called the show of hands.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Those of you who believe about the something about the healthcare, raise your hand. Do you and I think it was, should immigrants get healthcare?
Yes, yes.
And it was kind of interesting to see the people who immediately raised their hands and other people who kind of looked around and slowly
That was funny.
and
Yes.
it was interesting.
Yes.
And I think it's helpful for the American public to see that. And then the Democratic National Committee went, no more show of hands. We don't like that.
Oh, wait, hold on a second. Are you telling me that the Democratic committee actually stopped that practice? I didn't realize that.
So it was either CNN, who is the host, and or I haven't gotten real clear on who actually put the kibosh on it, but the informal kind of backlash that they got on that was like, no. And then the other thing that was very similar was kind of, I call it the lightning round. We're going to go down the line and you get a very short answer. So the down the line question was, if I remember correctly, was who is going to be our biggest threat that you need to be paying attention to as president, or who do we need to be reaching out to if you're president? You know, what's the one country? What's the one partnership? And, you know, so it was like you had to name something. And it started, I think, with Andrew Yang, and he just kind of went, what? You know, because they started at the fringe ends, and he's like, well, I wasn't ready for that one. And so they stopped that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of amazing. So now that we're into this debate, now we're down to 6 people. What are you expecting them to, or what do you think are going to be the issues that should be covered in detail now?
Well, I think you're starting to see a lot more questions that are, it's a statement about what's going on in the conversation, what's the policy, and then how do you plan on executing on that? You know, here's your position. There has been some explanation of positions in the last couple of debates. Now it's going to be like, so how are you going to actually execute? How are you going to fund it? How are you going to cut across the aisles? How are you going to make this happen? Because it's great to say, we need to do X, Y, and Z, but how are you really going to do that? I think that's what the American public are really interested in is, you know, how is that going to work? Money-wise, collaboratively, reaching across the aisle, culturally in our country, you know, how are you going to make that happen?
Now, that is your thought that is something that they should ask. Will they ask that? Because what I found over the time, and I didn't want to start our interview this way, is that what these guys are asking have very little to do with where the people that are most affected, you know, what they care about. If we take a look at what's afflicting America, let's look at what whoever one wants to define as the working class or whatever. A lot of these issues that they talk about, except for, let's say, Medicare for all, many of it has little effect on the people or something that they don't particularly see.
Well, and that's the complete purview of the moderators to select the questions. What questions do they want to ask? So healthcare has almost always been a line item that they're talking about. Foreign policy has almost always been a line item. Human rights, racial equality has almost always been a topic. Opioids, once.
That's my point.
You know, the whole reason why there was this big brouhaha at the beginning about, we should have a diverse set of moderators. We need to have more women and people of color so that they can represent those people's viewpoints coming from the stage. Well, okay, so they've had women moderators at every single debate, and yet women's issues have only come up in 2 debates.
You know, and you know,
it's kind of interesting.
Yes, it's actually very interesting, and I tell you what is also very interesting. That what's the name of the woman who is running that just dropped out of the race today? Williamson.
Oh, did she drop out?
She
Marianne
dropped
Williamson.
she dropped out today. That was the only person that really had a cogent answer on something like reparations. So we had something that was looking to be when we're talking about inclusivity or things that really matter to people, and the candidate most people consider a fringe candidate was the candidate with an actual valid answer.
But it was only asked really, I think the reparations issue was only asked in two separate debates. So if you think that the audience, and each audience is comprised of a region area,
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, do you talk about the issues that region cares about, or do you aim for the broader national audience? Now, I thought it was interesting that we were in Los Angeles, and nobody brought up homelessness.
True.
It's like, wow. How come they didn't talk about that? I would imagine if I was, and I grew up in Los Angeles, so if I'm a Los Angelian, I would probably want to hear about issues that are most important to me.
Well, I mean, and I don't know if we're kind of getting on the fringe of your purview or what you talk about on these issues, but I find that neither party, I find that when you take a look at both parties, except for those that are on, let's say, what many would call the fringes on both sides, they are pretty much milquetoast. They pretty much don't talk about much. They pretty much, even the way that the moderation is done is pretty much status quo, don't you think?
Well, keep in mind that this is a Democratic primary.
Right.
Okay. So you have basically the liberal news outlets that are providing the moderators, and they're qualified journalists and or opinion journalists. And they are going to pretty much ask questions that are going to support a viewpoint. And you don't really want a bloodbath at this point either. Like, and I do think that the Democratic candidates have kind of this gentlewomen's agreement to not like go for the throat. I think that is going to start changing. We saw it in the Republican side 4 years ago. I think you're going to see it on the Democrat side, that, the field has to get winnowed down. And one of the ways that the moderators ask the questions is they say, candidate A has been quoted of saying this, and you have been quoted as saying this, or how are you in agreement with this person? Are you in disagreement? Where is the difference between what you believe and what your compatriot believes? And I think that you're going to see more of those kinds of questions happen.
Now, Kristin, you just said something, and my antennas just kind of zoomed up because I hear it all the time, but I don't see it. And, I didn't expect you to see it as a moderator. Do you really think the liberal, even the news media is liberal, even the ones that have been in these questioning and these debates and evaluating these candidates?
Absolutely.
Really?
So you haven't seen any Fox debate moderators because the DNC basically said we're not going to ask Fox to participate this year. That is the first time that has happened. Mm-hmm. If you take a look at the Republican national debates that happened 4 years ago, Wolf Blitzer did 2 of them, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's always been a bipartisan media kind of, everybody got a chance. This time it's really, it's CNN, it's NBC, MSNBC,
NPR.
And NPR tends to be more on the liberal side. So I haven't seen a conservative outlet sponsoring the debates.
So you do consider Fox News an outlet then, or a news outlet?
A media outlet, yes.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right, next subject. What do you expect after this debate? Do you expect us to be whittled down a bit more or not?
That's a really interesting question. I think a couple of people missed the debate marks because of the polling and the holidays. I think you actually might see more people in the February debates, but there are 3 debates in February. 3.
But you already mentioned in your promo that, my God, these things are falling off. People are no longer watching the debates, right?
Correct. Yep.
So
this is going to be an interesting challenge about how can the debate moderators structure something that is actually going to be of interest. There are more people who watch town halls than watch the debates.
But I think town halls are better venues anyway, right? Because you get a chance to really feel a candidate out, sort of on screen from the strong hands of the moderator, right?
It's a one-on-one. It's a up close and personal, and I think that the American voter generically wants to know who they're voting for. Like, I want to know who you are and whether I believe you, I trust you, I understand your positions, which is why there have been a couple of questions on the debate stage that are what I call the human interest questions. These are the ones that say, if you were president, what would you do? Or, what is it that do you want to ask for forgiveness of? That was a weird one.
That one proved something. That's a weird question, but it proved something that I think this country needs to examine deeply. And I think the answers that the 2 women gave, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, being a woman yourself, but I think the way those women answered that question is directly related to us as Americans having not fully elected Hillary Clinton, having us not ever having elected a woman as a president, when even a Pakistan and an India and all these countries that we consider not very pro-women, they've all had women. So what do you think about that?
Well, I don't actually remember what the question was, but it was the women basically said, I would ask for forgiveness, and the men all said, and I can't remember, but for me it was more of I didn't come to that conclusion there, Berto. I just was like, wow, isn't that interesting? The women asked for forgiveness, and the men were. I mean, I just thought it was an interesting differentiator between the men on the stage and the women on the stage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I took it. The reason I took it is, I'm from somewhere else originally. I'm a naturalized American citizen, and as such, I kind of look at things from a very I think more so than most, I can look at it from an elevated level, if you will, from looking at it from 50,000 feet, if you will. And it is always surprising that as an advanced country that we are, that is, even if in our debates, I kind of see the differences between the female moderators moderate as opposed to the male moderators. I just see a dynamic there that is sometimes worrisome. Don't you see it even within the moderators?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I had somebody who asked about the different styles, which I thought was kind of interesting, between the men and the women. And, the way that women even intervene when somebody has gone over. There's usually a please or a, thank you, or whereas the men are a little bit more brusque. Right. The women are a little bit, and I'm generalizing here. I have not actually gone through the data to look at it. My data analyst and I were thinking about doing that, but it's like the women tend to be a little bit more patient and let the people go over time a little bit more. I don't know if people are aware that there are, for most of the debates, and I can't confirm this for all of them, but there usually is a shot clock that says green, it's go, yellow is you have
a few seconds,
and red is you're out of time. you need to wrap it up. And so the idea is that where they are all gentlemen and gentlewomen up there, and you are going to wrap it up when you start seeing that yellow light. And that does not happen a lot. The only person who actually, this is really interesting, the only person who actually really follows those time limits the closest, who do you think that is, Egberto?
Joe Biden.
Nope.
Okay, don't tell me Klobuchar.
Nope.
It's definitely not Warren, so please don't tell me it's Bernie.
Nope.
I'm lost.
Andrew Yang.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Discipline.
Yeah.
Discipline.
He probably follows the elements the closest. If I look at the data, he rarely goes over time. He's right spot on. It's really quite amazing.
And to our listeners, you need to go to rulesanalyst.com. Kristin analyzes a whole lot of how long people speak for, all that kind of stuff. It's worth a look at, because when you're watching it in real time, you don't see these things. But she goes down there with her team and she does quite a bit of analysis on that. Good work, Kristin, on that in that domain, that is.
Thank you.
But anyhow, let's kind of wrap this up by you telling me what's going to happen in the CNN debate.
Well, I think it's going to be pretty spicy. I think Wolf Blitzer, if I had to look in my crystal ball, I think that he's going to stir the pot. And I think that he's going to pit candidate against candidate. I think that he's going to provide some leading questions that people will have to push back on a bit. I think he's going to say some things that just might make you kind of go, where's that coming from? Looking for questions that the candidates have not prepared for. So I think it could be kind of interesting. I hope that that he brings a little pizzazz to the table, that he sparks a little fire. He's got to do something because as you mentioned before, the ratings have been going down a little bit. But it's hard to incite some interest when you got 12 people on a stage. So now that we've got 6, maybe there might be an opportunity for some real debating to go on.
That would be fun, but I sure wish we had Yang out there, because I want to discuss UBI and I want to discuss, I want to discuss interesting dynamics from all sides of the ideological divide, and not having Andrew Yang in there doesn't present itself to bring up that other thing.
He's got 10 more hours.
You think he's going to do it? No.
Who's to know?
All right. Kristin Arnold, president of QPC Inc., rules analyst for 2019-2020 presidential debates, high stakes meeting facilitator, professional panel moderator, and award-winning author, past president of the National Speakers Association. Thank you so kindly for having been with Politics Done Right, and thank you so kindly for coming on with us on this notice, my friend.
Thank you, Egberto.
You have a wonderful day, okay?
You too.
All right, folks, that was Kristin Arnold. We had a wonderful time. Keep up the good work, Kristin. Hey, folks, we have some continuing work to discuss. But before we go there, I think I better go ahead and answer some of the questions that are out there on the site. So let's go ahead and see that. We have, let's see, Roberto, mi panameño favorito, says, are you serious? Are you saying $450K a year will not make you rich? As a president of the USA, a salary of $450K will not make you of course it would. Well, look, Roberto, we have reached a point in life where wealth is a very relative thing. I think $450,000 makes you, or should make you, pretty darn wealthy, right? I mean, I don't need to spend, but again, I live in Texas, so Kristin is in LA, and that is a pretty expensive city. Now, as far as I'm concerned, hey, I think I can survive pretty well on, I don't know, maybe $100 and something thousand a year would help. Of course, a political activist don't make that kind of stuff, so we have to kind of scrunch for more here. All right, let's see. Daniel Ledo, the DNC stopped both because the answer is clear. They would rather a chance to obfuscate. Okay, if you say so, sir. I think, how am I going to answer that? All right, Lawrence Sims, really need to bring justice reform to the front of the conversation. Hey, you are so right about that. I mean, Bernie Sanders, I think a couple of times have tried that as well, Lawrence. And Cory Booker, of course, I think has been the champion on that. Lee Grant, or let's see, Daniel Ledo says, indeed, Trump is doing a great job on that front. I kind of lost on the, you know what, Lee? I am going to give you kudos on that. I don't know if he did it for good reasons, but he did it with all those folks that are getting released. So Daniel Ledo, in that regards, he's done something that even Obama hadn't done. So I'm going to give you a little bit of kudos right there. All right, Lee Grant. New York City is dealing with injustice reform by opening the jails. Daniel Ledo, what's no activist journalist like Egberto? Wait, never mind. The activist is redundant. Okay, my brother. Okay. All right, Lawrence Sims, rogues on the bench with their double standard of sentences and rogue cops in the arrest and reporting must be addressed as to what must be and how we will do it. Lawrence, from your mouth, from your words to the ethos, my friend, you're so right about that. Daniel Ledo says, do these two even realize how corrupt the DNC is, even as they're discussing how corrupt the DNC? No comment, because, all right. Tom Hines, oh, for God's sake, here we go again. I hear you, Tom. Lee Grant, the Dems need to address the PMS nuclear war issue. Okay. Daniel Ledo, seriously, are police even necessary? Yeah, police are very necessary. Daniel Ledo, identity politics is really just funny at this point. Identity politics, my friend Ledo, is actually pretty important. I think I've discussed that with you before. Lee Grant, the women heads of state from Pakistan, India, etc. were all related to male heads of states. They aren't from the bastions of progressive feminism. I agree with you, Lee Grant, on that statement. However, still, they were the heads of state. They were women. These guys could have picked sons. These guys could have picked cousins. They picked women. All right, let's see. By the way, this is a call-in show. Let me put the call-in number on. The call-in number is 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. Give us a call if you want to add to the discussion. Bruce Pillard says, hey, I just had another drug ripoff experience. I think the insurance companies are connected in some way with drug companies to wring out every buck they can get. Here is the deal, Bruce. Yes, you are correct. I don't even have to ask, where you just said, I think, you shouldn't have said, I think. You should have said, I am sure. And guess what, Bruce? That is the fiduciary responsibility of the drug company. That is the fiduciary responsibility of the insurance company. And guess what? They cannot not do that unless there are specific regulations that say you cannot do it. And why do I say that? The tenet of every corporation, I'm writing an article right now that says the following. It is impossible to use the word trust and corporations in the same sentence. And the reason why is the utmost responsibility of every corporation is numero uno. Their fiduciary responsibility is to the stockholder. And as capitalists, they must take whatever the market will bear. Remember, the market is the God Almighty in capitalism. The market system, the system defined by the mythical market, is God Almighty in capitalism. That's why I've always said, now the God Almighty of the evangelicals is capitalism, no longer Jesus Christ's daddy. So let's get that clear. Number one, their fiduciary responsibility is to the shareholder, and numero dos, they must they must charge whatever the market will bear. And that's why they force people to buy the insulin at whatever price they can, because that's their fiduciary responsibility. And the market will bear, what will the market bear? The market will bear whatever income you can make, whatever wealth you have acquired, and whatever credit you can get. Until that is exhausted, the corporation has not done its job. So when you hear us talk about insurance companies and the healthcare system bankrupting Americans, that is by design. I know it sounds, Egberto, you're just getting crazy right now. But no, if you take the tenets of the corporation, fiduciary responsibility to the shareholder, and a market system defined by whatever the market will bear, the market will bear everything up and until your bankruptcy. So when you take this to the limit, you realize at that point that corporations are designed ultimately to take all that you have until you become an indebted, indentured servant. And whenever Americans understand the reality of our economic system, what is actually occurring to you right now, that is the reason why Americans, the average American person, their wealth is not increasing. The corporate state's wealth is increasing. Those that are intimately involved with corporations, their wealth is increasing because they are the masters of that domain. We have to understand these concepts before we start fighting for them. Because we have people calling other people, you socialists, look at Venezuela. It's not about Venezuela. Look about Iran. Look at Korea. It's not about Korea. It's not about this. It's about you. Let me take the call that's coming in right now. Let's go to 973. 973, come on in. You are hot, sir.
Berto!
Where have you been? Johnny!
Busy. I've been so busy. Yes.
Talk to me, sir.
Oh, man, so much to talk about. I mean, there's so much going on right now. And I would just say that, number one, congratulations to the Democrats for impeaching, the president. He actually impeached himself, like Pelosi said in the very beginning. He impeached himself. And this is actually really important, I think, because he's setting all these precedents.
Yes.
And so I think it's harder to set a precedent when you've been impeached.
That is true. But you know what? Johnny? Donald Trump is doing a whole lot of stuff that we thought a president would be crazy to do.
Absolutely. And, some of it might turn out to be somewhat effective. Like his ability to be able to commit assassinations like he's doing is something that no other legal president was able to do or would attempt to do.
Right.
But because Trump is such an outlier, he can actually get away with this.
Yes.
And what's really interesting, and what's even more interesting and problematic, is that because he's such a madman, these countries, they really can't respond like they normally would. Because on the one hand, they want to say, well, I mean, you can't let Trump do what he's doing. But on the other hand, it's like, well, but then again, that's our good friend America. And yeah, Trump's in charge of it right now. And one day he'll be gone, and then America will go back to being our friend. But for right now, he's able to do some things. Look, I'm not for Trump at all, but I'm just saying this is very interesting. And then part two, before I just want to say this: are we officially on the Biden bandwagon now? I mean, it looks to me like if you really want to slap Trump, the best thing to do is to follow his presidency with either a Biden presidency or a Buttigieg presidency. And in fact, maybe we should put them both on the same ticket. Put Biden at the top of the ticket, put Buttigieg as a VP.
I still can't see that because I think that Trump will decimate Biden. I can't.
Really?
Let me tell you why. I've written a blog. I should go find it sometime, where I see the right wing turn Biden into Trump. In other words, Biden has a lot of the Trump proclivities, just at a much softer state. In other words,
That's fair.
Biden can be shown to be racist, not as racist as Trump. Biden can be shown to be sexist and misogynist, not so much as Trump. He can also be shown as
that's fact.
And he can be shown as nepotistic, not so much as Trump. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have to be so much as Trump. You just have to make the connection. And at that point, Trump wins. And my thing is,
Berto,
go ahead. Yes, sir.
But my only question, Berto, then is it becomes a question of like, how do we defeat this institution? Because it's going to be Iowa first, and then New Hampshire,
right,
and then South Carolina.
Let me tell you what I see.
That kind of setup.
Let me tell you what I see. I'll be honest with you. Let me tell you what I see. If Steyer continues to grow, I see. Really, believe it or not, Steyer came in at 12% ahead of Elizabeth Warren in Nevada. But here's the deal. In my opinion, this is just an opinion. All of us are just giving opinions here. I think that if our progressive bloc reaches, let's say, 55%, which I think is a distinct possibility, we're going to have a brokered convention then. And most people are thinking, well, brokered convention not going to make it on the first ballot. I am thinking alliance between Bernie, Elizabeth, and Steyer. And I don't know how that works out, but alliance between those three. I think just like Americans were crazy enough to elect Donald Trump, I think they're crazy enough to elect a person who goes out there and say, screw this. This is what we're finally going to really say we're going to give to you guys. You're
right. Steyer is alive. He's a live dog.
Well, I don't think it's going to be Steyer, though. I'm looking at Steyer as an ally, not as a ticket holder. Not at all. There can't be a billionaire on the ticket.
But wouldn't Steyer, and if I could speak to Steyer or Bloomberg, I would say to them, wouldn't we be better off if you used your power to buy Fox?
Yes.
I mean, that would be a much better exercise of your power than running for president.
But there's one thing you misunderstand, my brother. My brother, there's one thing you misunderstand. If you believe Democrats don't want Fox staying, the Democratic establishment does not want to have a Fox alive, you don't understand the plutocracy. Fox is necessary. Fox is necessary. Fox is what makes Americans think that the establishment Democratic Party is actually a progressive party. Okay? That's the purpose of Fox. You get some right-wing crazies. People like Biden look like they're not Republicans. Okay? That's the whole game. Mm-hmm. The whole game is the real sane people, the people that are not on the fringe are actually folks like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Yang. Those are the real...
Agreed.
Those are the real people.
Yes.
And what we have to do as progressive people is not fall into that trap that says, oh, but we need to bring somebody like Trump. No. Trump is not even governing the way he ran. But since he has a cult, that doesn't matter. But Trump was a liberal when he was running. Trump said he was going to give you the best health care at a cheaper price, but he was going to give you just about free health care. Trump said he was going to create jobs. He was going to do not a JFK, a Roosevelt, what do we call RFK?
The New Deal.
He was going to do a New Deal. That was Trump running.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
He's a deal maker.
I wrote an article.
Deal maker.
Johnny, I wrote an article for Daily Kos that said Trump was triangulating Democrats. I took more knives in my back than you would have not imagined. I also wrote an article that says Trump could actually win. I was told that how could I be an engineer who didn't understand science and math and polls? I had to remind them that these polls had a range. And within that range, there was a way for Trump to win. And guess what he did within that range? The polls weren't all that wrong. In fact, the polls weren't wrong. He came within the range. Hillary won the popular vote exactly by the polls margin. And he won the election just like the poll said he could have. So, people just want to look at the top line,
Yeah, but it's funny. It's funny. Now we're in the situation here where I got to tell you, I'm not a huge fan of what the Democrats are offering.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we very well, I mean, like at this point, we have to shut down Trump because he's setting precedents. I mean, basically, what's going to happen now is that there's going to be no oversight for the future presidents.
Right.
I mean, that's. I mean, and this is crazy. This
well,
is
you know,
not
that is
the
a question,
America
right, Johnny? The question is Trump setting a precedent, or is Trump just Trump? I don't know what's the answer. Maybe you know it better than I do.
Well, you know what? It's going to be very interesting because I actually think that when you talk about a person being impeached, when they say the word trial, I think when you say the word trial, inherently you're talking about a process that has to be somewhat done fairly.
Right.
Like, I don't think anybody would accept the fact that the Constitution would accept a trial that was unfair. It's like a smack in the face to the constitutional setup, and that's why I don't understand. Like, if in my mind, if the Republicans were smart, and the idea is to not to shut down, but just basically keep Trump in office, they should allow a full trial. Because if they're going to vote against it, they can do that, but at least keep the process in place. But by scrubbing the process, I mean, they'll kill the ability to impeach a president.
You know something?
And this is going to be a mess. And this is going to be a mess moving forward.
Johnny, right there, I must agree with you 100%. And I have no answers for that. None.
Yeah, brother.
You know, I have none for that. But Johnny, it was great hearing from you. Welcome back. I hope to hear from you a few more times during this month. So too. I've just been very busy. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Same to you, my brother. Same to you. Have a great one, okay? Brother. All right, folks, that was one of our callers. The lines are still open, 646-716-5812, but I need to talk to you about something very important. But before that, let me jump to what Bruce said. Bruce said, in Texas, the Democratic primary might be the most important election of the year. I agree with you. And Bruce said it also should be legal what they're doing with the insulin. It should be, I remember what I said, right? It cannot be illegal unless we have regulations that make it illegal. Otherwise, I think it is the right thing for these corporations to do. The corporate tenet has no humanity. And whenever people talk about capitalism has been the best thing that happened and all of that, I want folks to understand that out of all those tall buildings and those big, expensive yachts and all of those things that they said, oh, capitalism is great because it provides all those things. We have to understand how those things were really created, acquired. It had very little to do with humanity. It had very little to do with thinking about how we best allow all humans to have equal access to success. That is not what it was all about. But that is the system. And I want people to understand that. When you fight somebody like myself or others that are talking about we need a transformational president to transform this system, you have to first believe that there is something wrong with the system. You have to believe that the system is cancerous, a cancer that spreads. And how is that cancer defined? The bankruptcy of Americans losing their life earnings, Americans not able to get the right kind of health care. All these things are not aberrations. They are what the system was designed to do. You need a transformation in this system for it to no longer do that. And that transformation is what many of our own people are fighting against because they have allowed others to tell them that doing these other things make you Venezuela, make you Iraq, makes you Korea. So let's get that in our heads. What the results of what we're seeing is the system. And if you want change, you have to change the system. You have to change the system. You start changing the system. You don't want to just abruptly change it. You change it by doing things like starting off with a Medicare for all. That gives everybody economic security based on health. You clean up the environment that is currently sickening many people, cancer alleys throughout the country, pulmonary alleys throughout the country. All these things that are occurring throughout the country because of our current environment. We also have to have the Green New Deal that mitigates all of that and creates the employments and the enrichment for a new group, a new brand of Americans. Those things are not things that are, fringe. They are called fringe because those people that are pilfering us don't get away with it. All right, Lawrence says Biden has the advantage because he was next in line with Obama. All he needs is a VP pull the opposite like his role with Obama was. Donald played all angles and the rhetoric about never Hillary pushed third party to swing states and swing the elect. Let me look, Lawrence. I don't know. The only reason Biden is ahead right now is that he has a whole lot of black support, period. As soon as that's gone, Biden is no longer the leader. And once the entire country, the entire population of the country is taken into account, that is what gives Donald Trump the opportunity. Black people still believe that because Obama chose Biden, that he's acceptable. But when they really find out the reason Obama picked Biden, Obama did not pick Biden because Biden was a bastion of civil rights. Obama did not pick Biden because somehow he cared about the system of injustice within this country. He picked Biden because Biden could win him the racist white vote. Nothing, no other reason for picking Biden. Biden was going to win him the racist white vote. Nothing else. So if you are happy, any black person is happy to support a person like Biden, you pretty much will get what you deserve after Biden throws you to the curb if he's elected. And by the way, I think just about every Democrat that plays the right cards can win. But I think Biden is so bad that he could pull defeat out of a win. But Lawrence, the reason why, again, Biden was picked was solely to win the racist vote, nothing else. And I gave you guys the example of the canvassers in Pennsylvania asking a white person, a white couple in the Appalachian area, honey, who are we voting for? Yes, we're voting for the N guy. And the reason why was Biden was there as a backstop. Black folk, Latinos, never forget it. That is the reason that Obama picked him. Obama will never come out and say that. But all of us in the know understand why Biden was the choice. Let me see if I have anything else to answer real quickly. Do we know the DNC financial status today? The DNC is doing pretty well financially. They could do quite a bit better. I think the best place to put people's money is in the. I'm sort of partial here, but I think we're doing a better job. Independent media is where your money should be going, not to these areas that are going to try to push candidates that you don't necessarily. I think at the end, after this has all played out, we have to support both independent media, the DNC, and all these guys that are going to be pushing for one candidate. But while we're still trying to determine who the candidates are, we shouldn't be allowing a central organization to control the message, given the way that message is being controlled right now. All right, Bloomberg is leaving his people in even if he doesn't win, so the Dems have his money, whatever happens. Yes, that is so true, Michael Dean Newton. That is the reason why I am not completely against Bloomberg, because Bloomberg is doing something the Democratic Party is not doing. Bloomberg is setting up a data center. Bloomberg is setting up micro-targeting. Bloomberg is really setting up for a real Democratic win. So Bloomberg is doing a good job, and he does not intend to let that money go to waste. And that's the reason I think he's willing. I think he sees Donald Trump as a clear and present danger. And in doing so, I think he would accept even a Bernie Sanders in as much as he completely disagreed with Bernie Sanders. I think he would accept a Bernie Sanders as president and then use his money to fight Bernie Sanders like hell when he starts to move on things like Medicare for all and the other. But what I say to people is, let's get Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or Andrew Yang into that position. And then we, the people, the common persons, can go out there and fight like hell to force the hands of the candidates. Okay, before I go, I have to remind you folks that we are yes, his ad does cover issues, Michael Dean Newton. You're absolutely right about that. Before I go, I want to tell you guys that please remember this is a political show that needs your support. And there are many ways for you to offer your support. The first way that we ask for your support is for you to please subscribe to Politics Done Right. I've just put that into the feed. Subscribe to Politics Done Right. We desperately need your support to ensure we can continue. You can also support our equipment fund to keep equipment that brings you the equipment that we can go out there in the field. I've just added that as well. And don't forget, we also would like you to, if you have the wherewithal, to contribute via our PayPal, which I've just placed there as well. And go to store.politicsdoneright.com. So let me repeat. If you want to become a subscriber, you can always go to politicsdoneright.com and select the option that you want. But if you want to go there directly, if you want to subscribe right now, go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. If you want to just go ahead and purchase some of our t-shirts and cups and all the other things that we have, please go ahead and go to store.politicsdoneright.com. Again, that is store.politicsdoneright.com. Michael D. Newton, thank you so kindly for becoming a member. And let's have a whole lot of people becoming members of Politics Done Right. By the way, if you're on YouTube, you can always click that $sign and super chat us and, offer us some support to ensure we can continue doing this. We have a lot of work to do. We will do a lot of work. And look, we have a t-shirt that says, I support independent media. Why don't you go ahead and go to store.politicsdoneright.com and support progressive media, support independent media that's really working for you. Last night, I went ahead and I covered the HD 134 here in Texas. That is a House District 134 here in Texas. And those are the kinds of things that we do. We work for you. This is your show. You want to cover a subject, you can always call in. You can always call in and talk about it. You can always say, this is my show and this is what I want to do. On the screen as well, you see politicsdoneright.com. At that location, you can decide how you want to support this program. You also have the direct links in the feed. Folks, we are coming to the end of the show. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, your show. And you know how we end this baby. I am what? Out!